Insomniac's Spider-Man is easily one of my favorite games from the PS4. The developers took the familiar open-world mold as their foundation and layered it with a great combat system, story, and a respect for the characters. The combat system took heavy inspiration from the Arkham games, along with capturing Spider-Man's stylish moves and agility. This resulted in the action feeling inspired by Batman, but not being a direct copy of it. Insomniac nailed the swinging. Traversing the open world was an absolute joy, and only something that you would find in this game. The story was also excellent, and I like how it tackled both familiar villains along with lesser known ones. There were some great moments where we see Peter's struggle of trying to balance everything within his life. For me, this was a close to perfect game. While we wait for the full sequel, Insomniac has released a standalone entry where we get to play as Miles Morales. He was a bright spot in the base game, so I was eager to see how his first solo adventure would be. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my review for Spider-Man Miles Morales. Let's start out with the gameplay. The combat system used here will be very familiar to anyone who has played the 2018 game. As you attack enemies, you will build up an energy bar. This energy can be used to heal yourself while in combat, or you can use it to unleash some of your special moves. Miles has some different powers like his Venom abilities. These attacks are very flashy and can stun many enemies. You have a few different types of Venom attacks, some will hit a wide area or great for disarming enemies. The other neat ability that he has is how Miles can turn invisible during a fight. This can allow you to resituate yourself or even get the drop on a few enemies before you are revealed. This is probably my favorite of his new abilities. The camo allows you to break line of sight, and it gives you more options for stealth within the game. This ability gives you some more options and helps to provide a little bit more depth to the stealth action, if you so choose. Or you can opt to turn invisible and disarm a bunch of enemies before they see you again. Just like with Peter, you have a few gadgets that you can use as well. Miles has the expected web shooters, and they work just like they did in Spider-Man 2018. Miles also has access to holograms that will attack enemies for you and are a good means to help fighting a bunch of enemies all at once. The remote mines are fun to use as well, as they can stun and take down enemies. And then you have these wormhole type grenades that suck all the enemies into one location. The combat very much plays like it did in 2018, but Miles has just enough different abilities and gadgets to make him feel unique enough. One thing that I really enjoyed was how the environments are more destructive in this game. During many of your fights, large pieces of glass, furniture, and other items will get destroyed. This really makes your actions feel like they have more weight to them, since you're causing actions that affect the environment around you. When it comes to the general combat, the game excels. If you enjoyed the combat from the prior game, then you're gonna enjoy this one. Outside of the open combat encounters, you will have situations where you can opt to take out enemies with stealth. This operates like the prior game, but the use of the camouflage gives you some more options to play around with. The stealth is still not the strongest area of the combat, but it does help to break up the normal action. The web slinging returns as well, and it's just as awesome. Playing this on the PS5 with a high frame rate was an absolute joy. As you progress within the campaign, there are plenty of side missions and activities that you can complete for more rewards. Some of the side missions are pretty fun, with having some centered around Peter Parker training Miles. One involves Peter voicing some of his villains as they attack Miles. Many of the activities involve Miles trying to help out the citizens of the city. As you defeat enemies and complete tasks, you will earn experience points. Once you level up, it will increase some of the base stats along with providing you with a skill point to better your skills. As you earn tokens from different tasks, you can use this to unlock suits, different upgrades for your suits, along with improving your gadgets. Without getting into any spoilers, I really enjoyed the main narrative of the game. We sort of see Miles coming coming into his own and how he is very new to being Spider-Man. He messes up and makes mistakes and needs to learn to deal with the consequences of his actions. All of this is interweaved with some pretty good side characters and villains. The story does have some really awesome and well-presented moments, but at times the story can be moving so fast that it almost feels like it's being rushed. This game is a great example of how Insomniac can deliver a solid set piece for the players. The last fourth of the game is really well done and climactic. Overall, I enjoyed the story.
You here? Just down in some rocket fuel.
How are you drinking?
Very, very carefully. Okay, go time.
Helix 2 en route with heavy payload.
Copy, Helix 2, we've got you on scope.
This is a big operation.
Overall, I had a good time with this game, but I did encounter a good amount of flaws along the way. The first one is with the change to Peter's face. I hate that the developers changed Peter's face model from the 2018 game. Peter now looks way too young for how old he's supposed to be. And while I understand that the face was not modeled after Tom Holland, it completely looks like it was. I understand the developers stated some reason why they needed to change it, but it all just sounded like fluffy PR language and not a good reason for the change. This change was completely unneeded. Like I said before, the story is good, but there are many parts that feel rushed. For example, we get introduced to the main villain, and during that reveal, we learn the identity of that villain. This could have been a good opportunity to have some mystery as to the identity of this character. There are many plot points that could have benefited from letting the game breathe a bit, rather than rushing to the next big moment. I wish Simon was developed more in the story. They got Troy Baker to voice act such a forgettable character that isn't given much to do. One area that I found surprising was how I encountered a decent amount of performance issues within this game. I had one instance where the game didn't register that I completed a story mission, and it wouldn't end the mission. Thankfully, restarting the checkpoint worked. I had an instance where an enemy was getting stuck in a pole. I had one mission glitch out in the middle of the mission, which required me to restart the checkpoint. The game completely froze and locked up my system once on me. I had a few other instances where the game just completely crashed as well. Overall, this game felt less polished than the prior entry, and I was playing on the PS5, so maybe some of the issues are just on the PS5's version. And lastly, I really didn't like the small moments of virtue signaling within the game. Through some of the side missions and in some of the story missions, characters from Harlem refer to Miles as their Spider-Man or our Spider-Man. Normally I wouldn't register this stuff, but with this being 2020 and game writers getting more in your face with their points, I didn't really like that this implied that Peter did not care about the citizens of Harlem or something like that. I may be looking into it a bit too much, but I didn't really like these lines in the game. Along with this, after you complete a set of side missions, the game shows you a mural of BLM and provides you with a BLM Spider-Man suit. This felt like a checkbox sort of thing and trying to make some people in the media happy. While only a small part of the game, I didn't really care for it. Before we conclude this review, I want to point out some of the solid tracks from the soundtrack. Here are a few tracks from the game. Overall, Spider-Man Miles Morales is a solid standalone entry within the Spider-Man series. The combat is enjoyable, and while the story was rushed at times, it was an enjoyable tale. I do wish that the game performed better and had less issues with stability, but hopefully these get ironed out with future patches. I do want to mention the price point for this game as well. This game does feel like a very high quality expansion. I think $50 is just a bit too high considering that the entire city is reused from the first game, along with many of the areas that you fight in. I think Sony went with $50 because they could get away with it for such a big franchise, but I think $40 at most would have been the most appropriate thing to do for this. Either way, if you have a PS5, this is definitely worth playing. Thank you very much for watching.